No one on the crowded 6 a.m. city bus knew who the man slouched in the back seat really was. With his steel-toe boots scuffed from a thrift store, a faded hoodie draped over his shoulders, and thick glasses clouding his eyes, Nalin looked like just another worn-out worker starting another thankless shift. He'd spent nearly an hour in front of the mirror perfecting the look, not for vanity, but for invisibility. No one could mistake him for the 42-year-old CEO of the city's largest family-run transit company. He'd inherited the business from his father 3 years ago. On paper, things looked solid: steady profits, consistent ridership, balanced books. But in his gut, he knew something had shifted. Complaints had been rising. Drivers were quitting in waves. Morale was off. When he asked his middle managers for answers, they all echoed the same tired refrain: staffing issues, traffic delays, human error. He never heard directly from the drivers themselves. The company had grown large enough that his presence was more myth than reality. People assumed he was a new recruit or a guy from another route. Most communication passed through district managers and shift supervisors. One of the busiest depots, 8th Street, was just a name on his spreadsheets. He'd never even walked through its doors. That morning, he decided it was time to see the cracks for himself. The driver that day was Gina Ellery, mid-30s, sharp ponytail, steely eyes that never lost focus. She greeted every passenger, yes, even the grumpy ones who refused to respond, with a calm, "Morning." It was subtle, but Nathan caught the weight in her voice, a fatigue that went deeper than just missing sleep. "New guy?" she asked, eyes briefly flicking to the rearview mirror as he stepped on board. "Yeah," he muttered, adjusting his backpack. "Dispatch said I should ride with you today." She didn't ask further. She had a route to run, a clock to chase. They rolled out at exactly 6:12. By 6:23 they were already behind. A double-parked car in a loading zone forced them to detour. Construction chewed up another 5 minutes. Then came a passenger in a wheelchair who needed assistance boarding. Gina took her time, making sure he was secure, safe, and dignified. Through it all, she stayed composed, announcing delays over the intercom, her tone apologetic but steady. But Nathan saw what others missed. Her fingers trembled slightly as she sipped her coffee. Her shoulders sat high with tension, like they hadn't dropped in weeks. Every time the dispatch radio crackled, she winced, as if expecting to be blamed for something again. By the time they pulled into the 8th Street depot at 7:15, they were nearly 10 minutes late. Gina sighed as she put the bus into park, the sound more emotional than mechanical. At the office door, a man stood waiting, arms crossed, clipboard in hand, polished shoes that had never touched bus pedals. "Ellery," he barked. "Third time this week." Gina stepped off the bus, wiping her palms on her uniform, bracing herself. "There was construction." "I don't want excuses," the man snapped, voice cold and clipped. "You drivers always blame everyone but yourselves. Start earlier, drive smarter. It's not rocket science." Nathan's stomach twisted. He stood nearby, pretending to scroll his phone, but his heart pounded like a drum. He couldn't stay silent. There was a car blocking. Gina tried again. "Figure it out," the man growled. "You're professionals. Act like it. If this happens again tomorrow, don't expect to keep your shift." Nathan stepped forward. She wasn't late because she wanted to be. The man spun around, face pinched with authority. "Who are you?" "Just started yesterday," Nathan said evenly, riding along. "I saw it all. The construction, the detour, the delay from the wheelchair passenger. None of it was on her." The man's lip curled. "You've been here 1 day, rookie. Don't tell me how to manage my team." Nathan's voice dropped low, steady. "What's your name?" "Matt. Room manager for 8th Street." Nathan nodded slowly, searing the name into his mind. "Good to know." Gina looked at him, puzzled, sensing something deeper behind Nathan's calm face. Matt pointed at her without looking back. "Get the next bus ready, 5 minutes." Without a word, Gina walked off, shoulders tight. Nathan followed her into the break room. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, the smell of burnt coffee and exhaustion lingering in the air. She poured herself a fresh cup. "He's always like that?" Nathan asked softly. She hesitated, then gave a short nod. "Doesn't matter what happens. If we're late, it's our fault." Nathan scanned the break room. One battered microwave, a coffee machine from another decade, 2 chairs with torn cushions, and a stack of newspapers no one had touched in weeks. The room felt forgotten, just like the people in it. "How long you been here?" he asked. 5 years, she said, looking down at her coffee. "I used to love it." Her voice cracked just slightly, and in that crack Nathan felt something shift. Not in her, but in himself. He had inherited a company, but he hadn't yet earned it. Not really, and this morning was just the beginning. She shrugged with a tight, weary smile. "Feels like we're just numbers now." Nathan felt a knot tighten in his chest. He wanted to tell her that she wasn't, that someone was finally paying attention. But he held back. Not yet. He hadn't seen the full picture. He needed more than a snapshot of dysfunction. He needed to understand the cracks beneath the surface. That night, he returned to his small, modest apartment on the other side of town. It was clean but impersonal, a temporary space filled with thrifted furniture and untouched takeout menus. No one there knew who he really was, not even Gina. And he intended to keep it that way, at least for now. The next morning, Nathan showed up early, 5:50 a.m., 15 minutes before the start of his second ride along, but this time, he didn't go inside. He stood outside the employee parking lot, his breath forming faint clouds in the crisp dawn air. Around him, the depot was alive with the quiet energy of a new day. Buses rumbled to life. Drivers moved in patterns, checking mirrors, shouting about missing clipboards, sipping lukewarm coffee from metal tumblers. No one gave him a second glance. A tall, broad-shouldered man in his 50s emerged from a maintenance bay, moving with the easy confidence of someone who had done this work longer than most had been alive. Thermos in one hand, clipboard under his arm, his name, Carl Mendoza, was already familiar to Nathan from the shift schedule. Carl drove Route 12, which served a mix of commercial zones and overlooked residential areas, routes that too often slipped through the cracks of city funding. "You the temp?" Carl asked without slowing down. "Supposed to be," Nathan replied, falling into step beside him. "Dispatch said to follow your route." Carl grunted his approval. "Keep up. Route 12 doesn't wait for anybody." The bus was older but clean. Carl moved with practiced efficiency, inspecting the vehicle with a quick but thorough eye. Mirrors, blinkers, brakes, emergency gear, all checked like second nature. He gestured toward a clipboard dangling from the dash. "Run sheet. Ignore most of it. Half those stops are out of date since they changed zoning last year." Nathan studied it. Several stops were crudely crossed out, replaced with handwritten notes, some in blue ink, some in pencil, an improvised system in place of the one management never updated. As they pulled out, Carl leaned slightly toward him. "Here's how this works. You sit still. Don't touch anything. If a rider gets loud or twitchy, don't try to be a hero. Just hit the alert." Nathan nodded, absorbing every detail. The first hour rolled by without incident. At the South Industrial Loop, they picked up the regular night shift workers whose bodies moved slower than their thoughts. Carl offered a nod or grunt, keeping conversation to a minimum. Then they reached Hawthorne and Fifth Avenue, a tight residential corner that had been choked by a familiar nuisance, a silver sedan illegally parked at the bend. Carl hit the horn, twice. Nothing. "This one again," Carl muttered. His voice was calm but laced with resignation. "You ever report it?" Nathan asked quietly. Every week. They tow it once, then it's back. City says it's out of our jurisdiction. Management says, document it and move on. Carl eased the bus forward, the back tires clipping the curb with a thud. A woman near the rear cursed under her breath. Carl didn't flinch. At the next stop, a man in a worn denim jacket stepped aboard, holding a faded paper with a barcode. Carl scanned it and frowned. Not good. What's the issue? Nathan asked. Expired pass, from yesterday. The rider looked up, his expression both frustrated and embarrassed. They said it'd still work today. Carl didn't argue. Instead, he pulled a small slip from behind the dash. Get a new one tomorrow, and tell them at dispatch to stop playing games with yesterday's dates. As the man took a seat, Carl turned back to Nathan. Half the folks on this route don't get clear info from the ticket office. They're handed wrong passes, wrong schedules, and we're the ones left dealing with the fallout. Nathan kept his face composed, but inside he was cataloging every moment. This wasn't laziness. It was a crew forced to make daily workarounds because the system meant to support them had abandoned them. By 9:40 a.m. they pulled back into the depot. Carl parked the bus, filled out his mileage report, and stretched his arms. Who's the guy with the blue tie always hanging by the lockers? Nathan asked. Carl snorted. Ray, assistant ops lead. Used to drive, back when it was different. Now he stands around and watches people sweat. Ever ride routes anymore? Not since he got his little promotion, and if he sees you talking too much, he'll think you're slacking off. Nathan nodded, the wheels turning in his mind. Inside the depot, he spotted Ray scrolling his phone by a filing cabinet. Nathan approached casually. Morning, he said. Ray didn't look up. You lost? Carl said I should check in with dispatch after the route. Ray finally glanced at him. You were with Mendoza? You're lucky. He doesn't usually talk to temps. Nathan offered a small smile. I noticed. Ray squinted at him, suspicious. How long you here for? Week or two, Nathan replied. Well, keep your head down, don't get involved in what's not yours. Nathan nodded again, but this time, he didn't walk away. Not far, anyway. He waited in a nearby maintenance corridor. Seconds later, Ray passed, still glued to his phone. Once the coast was clear, Nathan slipped into the operations office. It wasn't locked. Inside were two desks. One was buried in outdated route maps, a blinking broken printer, and a half-full cup of coffee gone cold. And with it, the evidence he was looking for. The other whiteboard in the office stood in stark contrast, pristine, almost too clean. But one line caught Nathan's eye. Next to Gina's name under Wednesday, someone had scribbled again. 7 minutes late, final warning. It felt cold, surgical, like a sentence passed by someone who had never stepped foot on her route or sat in her seat. Nathan snapped a photo with his phone and quietly exited. By Friday, he'd completed ride-alongs with 3 more drivers, each one navigating a unique maze of urban challenges. Streets torn open by construction, glitchy fare scanners that frustrated passengers, and buses that limped along with broken heaters or flickering lights. The hardware problems were frustrating, but not surprising. What truly haunted him was the atmosphere inside those buses. There was no laughter, no idle chat. The drivers moved with robotic efficiency, clocking in and clocking out like shadows drifting through fog. Gone was any trace of pride. What remained was silence, cold, unspoken, and heavy. That afternoon, Nathan returned to the break room, the familiar buzz of fluorescent lights greeting him like a reminder of everything that hadn't changed yet. 2 drivers sat at the table, a young woman in a neon green vest and an older man with a noticeable limp. Neither looked up. They were used to people coming and going, faces changing more often than the vending machine stock. Gina walked in, rain-soaked and visibly tired. Nathan stood instinctively. You're still here, he said with a soft smile. She pulled off her gloves and dropped into a chair. Still learning? She asked, a hint of warmth under the fatigue. Most temps don't last a week. What's the turnover like? He asked. She exhaled. Bad. New drivers train 2 weeks, then quit after 1. We're short every single day. Nathan's voice lowered. Why do you stay? She leaned back, her eyes glazed from 1,000 thoughts she didn't want to share. Because I've got 2 kids. Because I've got rent. Because starting over somewhere else sounds harder than holding on here. Pick one. Nathan nodded slowly. What would make it better? Gina looked at him for a long moment. Maybe, if someone up top actually listened, she said quietly. But they don't ride these routes. They just read numbers. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. That night as he left, he passed Matt near the vending machines. The same manager who had humiliated Gina earlier that week. He was laughing with Ray. She cried again in the break room, Ray said, chuckling. Matt shrugged, unfazed. If she can't handle pressure, she shouldn't be here. Nathan froze in his tracks. She's been late every other day, Matt added. I don't care if she's got 6 kids and a flat tire. This isn't a babysitting service. Nathan didn't speak. He walked on, fists clenched in his jacket pockets, rage simmering behind a wall of restraint. The gloves were coming off. The next morning, just after 6 a.m., Nathan returned to the 8th Street depot, not as a temp, but as himself. He wore a dark blazer over a plain shirt, jeans, and the same boots from earlier that week, a quiet symbol of the journey he'd walked. No fanfare, no media, just him. He walked past the dusty wall of forgotten safety posters, past the same bulletin board no one read, and straight into the operations office. Ray looked up from his desk and froze. Matt, halfway through his coffee, crossed his arms. And you are? Nathan met his gaze. Nathan, Nalin. Ray's brow tightened. Matt scoffed. Wait, you're the owner's kid? Nathan didn't blink. He walked past them, opened the door to the small conference room, and waited. When they entered, he pointed to the chairs. So they obeyed. I've been here all week, he began, voice level, riding routes, sitting in break rooms, listening. Matt folded his arms smugly. So, you've got questions? I've got facts. Nathan didn't flinch. I watched a driver get threatened for being 7 minutes late after navigating construction. I saw ignored reports of blocked intersections. I heard you both mocking a woman for crying at work. Ray shifted in his seat. That was taken out of context. No, it wasn't. Matt snapped. Look, we're under pressure. Schedules are tight. If we let everyone slide, the whole thing falls apart. This isn't about letting people slide, Nathan said, stepping closer. This is about a system rigged against the very people keeping it running. Maintenance requests ignored, city issues swept aside, warnings written instead of help given. Ray tried again. We're overwhelmed. Too many routes, not enough staff. Nathan nodded. Then you ask for help. You don't bury problems and blame your drivers. Matt stood up, face red. I've been doing this for years. Don't walk in after a week and act like you know this job. Nathan stayed calm. It's not your team, it's mine, and starting today, you're no longer a part of it. Matt froze. You're firing me? Yes, effective immediately. Ray sat still, eyes wide. Nathan turned to him. You're on probation. Report directly to me for 30 days. One more incident like what I saw, and you're gone. Ray nodded slowly, lips pressed tight. Nathan left the room. In the hallway, he crossed paths with Gina. She was just arriving, her uniform still damp from the morning air. She stopped mid-step. You're the owner? He nodded. I am. Her gaze dropped, then rose again. Why didn't you say anything? Because I wouldn't have seen the truth if I had. They walked together in silence until he turned to her. Gina, I owe you an apology. You've been working under impossible conditions. She looked away, embarrassed. I just do my job, and that's exactly why I need your help. She blinked. With what? Fixing this place. Minutes later, word spread through the depot like wildfire. No email, no announcement, just whispers. Meeting. Everyone. Now. In 20 minutes, the conference room was packed. Drivers, mechanics, route planners. Some stood in corners, others leaned on walls, all curious, all wary. Nathan stepped forward. Most of you don't know me, he began. I'm Nathan Nalin. I've been your CEO for 3 years. Murmurs rippled. A voice whispered, that was the temp. This week, I rode your buses, sat in your break rooms, watched what you go through, and I'm not proud of what I saw. Silence. You've been blamed for problems you didn't cause. That ends now. He took a breath. Ann is no longer with this company. Ray is under review. But this isn't just about removing people. It's about rebuilding. A hand rose. Carl, what's going to change? First, we're creating a triage maintenance team, Nathan said. Buses with broken doors, heating, scanners, logged, tracked, fixed within 24 hours, period. Another hand. The green-vested driver. What about Hawthorne and Fifth? I've contacted the city. We'll document every blockage. If they don't respond, we escalate to the mayor's office. More nods. Second, we're launching a driver advisory board. 3 of you, chosen by you, meeting with me monthly. No more filters. Third, every route manager will ride 1 route per week. No exceptions. From the back, a mechanic asked, what about staffing? Nathan nodded. Recruitment drive starts Monday, with referral bonuses for any new hire brought in. We fix this together. He paused. I can't fix everything overnight, but I promise you, I won't lead from behind a desk anymore. The room didn't cheer. It didn't need to. The silence had changed. It wasn't hollow anymore. It was hopeful. That afternoon, Nathan sat near the south lot, reviewing a list of flagged buses. Gina approached, 2 cups of coffee in hand. She handed him one. I don't know if this changes anything, she said. Not right away, Nathan replied. But it's a start. It doesn't, Nathan admitted quietly. But it starts something. Gina sat beside him on the bench, her shoulders still damp from the rain. The soft hum of idling buses echoed across the lot. Ray's still watching us like we're planning to steal the steering wheels, she muttered with a half-laugh. I know, Nathan said, but he's on notice now, and I'm watching him too. They sat in silence, both gazing out at the endless rows of buses like soldiers waiting for orders. The depot still looked tired, still carried the scars of years of neglect. But something in the air had shifted. A pulse had returned. You picked a hard place to start, she said. Nathan took a sip of his coffee, eyes fixed forward. It's where the truth lives. Inside the depot, a new sign was being mounted just above the time clock. It was simple. Black letters on a white background. No logo, no slogan. Just a message. Every voice counts. If you drive the route, you shape the road. For the first time in months, the silence in the depot didn't feel like surrender. It felt like something waiting to wake up. By Monday morning, the energy at 8th Street was different. Not louder, not faster, just sharper. There was a quiet alertness to the drivers, as if they had finally realized someone was walking beside them, not just above them. No one was sure what would change yet, but the weight of resignation had lifted just enough to make space for something stronger than hope, belief. Nathan arrived early with someone new by his side, Trina, a logistics specialist from uptown. She was blunt, wore high-top sneakers with business slacks, and didn't waste words. "This depot has no real escalation system," she said as they walked. "Drivers report problems to managers. Managers jot it in binders that disappear. Half these buses are limping. They've adapted," Nathan said. "They shouldn't have to," Trina replied. The first change was infrastructure. The dusty dry erase board was replaced with a sleek digital screen displaying live route updates, maintenance alerts, and notes from drivers themselves. No more paper trails to nowhere. A rolling monitor station was installed in the break room, visible to everyone, and for the first time, drivers could log issues using their ID badges and track repairs in real time. But tools weren't enough. Late Tuesday, Marcus, the tall, sharp-eyed driver Nathan had noticed earlier, walked into his office. He didn't sit. "You got a minute?" he asked. "Always," Nathan nodded. Marcus hesitated, then shut the door. "It's about Vince, the training coordinator." Nathan listened as Marcus laid it out, how Vince had quietly driven new hires, particularly women and minorities, out of the program. Unfair mock routes, poor instructions, demeaning comments. One trainee quit after 2 days. Another left in tears after being told her accent would never survive a bus full of commuters. Nathan's jaw tensed. "You ever report it?" Marcus laughed bitterly. "To who? Vince does evaluations, and Ray only cares if someone misses a shift." "Where is Vince now?" "Training bay. New guy started today." Nathan didn't hesitate. He marched through the depot, past the repair lifts, into the training bay. Vince leaned against a boss, clipboard under his arm, speaking to a stiff young trainee. "Vince," Nathan called. The man turned, surprised. "Didn't think you walked this side. I need you in my office, now. I'm mid-session." Yeah. Back in the office, Nathan shut the door behind them. "Don't sit," he said. "You won't be staying." Vince frowned. "Excuse me? I've received credible reports of discrimination, harassment, and neglect during training. That's grounds for immediate termination." "That's ridiculous. Who said that?" Nathan stepped forward. "It doesn't matter. What matters is that your actions created a hostile environment. I've confirmed it with multiple sources. You're done." Vince looked like he might argue, but didn't. He turned and left without another word. Nathan exhaled. Some decisions weren't hard, they'd just taken too long. That evening, the break room felt different. 2 of the broken chairs had been replaced. The bulletin board now displayed rotating city updates, route alerts, and priority repairs. The mess of outdated memos was gone. "Hey," said a voice behind him. He turned. Gina stood there, rubbing her shoulder beneath her soaked jacket. "You okay?" he asked. "Getting there," she replied, then pulled a folded slip of paper from her pocket and handed it to him. It was a printed city order. A temporary tow zone sign had been installed at Hawthorne and 5th. No more blocked turns. "First time I made that corner in 6 months without touching the curb." Nathan smiled. "It's not permanent." "No," she said. "But it's the first fix that didn't come from a lecture." She didn't wait for a reply. She nodded and walked off. By Friday, the ripple effect had reached farther. Carl, the seasoned driver, was quietly elected to the new advisory board. He didn't campaign. He just showed up, listened, and offered his first motion. No driver would work more than 3 consecutive late shifts without a day off. It passed unanimously. 2 former trainees returned that week, ones who had walked away under Vince's supervision. This time, Marcus trained them. He didn't say much. He just adjusted the mirrors and said, "Let's roll." Trina delivered her full report. Overdue maintenance, weak staffing, flawed route logic. But her final line wasn't about metrics. "Keep showing up. She told Nathan. Not once a year, not with cameras, just show up, quiet, regular, real. He nodded. And the following Monday, he did. No disguise, no performance, just him. He rode Gina's route again. She didn't say much. She didn't need to. He stood behind her seat, watching as she waved a wet-haired kid onto the bus, then took a tight corner like she'd been doing it forever. She glanced at him once in the mirror. "You're still fixing things." "I'm trying." "Good," she said. "Just don't stop when it gets quiet again." He didn't answer. He wouldn't need to. Back at the depot, the sign above the clock had changed again. Beneath the first line, "Every voice counts. If you drive the route, you shape the road," was a new one. Same bold letters. If it matters to one of us, it matters to all of us. No press release, no confetti, just a depot that worked a little better than the week before. And no one had to cry in the break room to be heard.